Hey guys, the number one question that we get from our viewers is what kind of cameras do we use? So we decided to create a video covering all of our travel gear.
Now we're going to start off listing our main cameras, and then the rest of the video will go over the pros and cons of all of our equipment. So our main four cameras are DJI Phantom 3 Standard, a Canon 70D, which we're currently using to film this, a Canon G7X Mark II, and a GoPro Hero4 Silver.
Now, if you've been shopping around for gear and equipment, you've likely come across other YouTubers who are partnered with the Amazon affiliate program.
And to be completely transparent with you, if you do like any of this equipment, by using the Amazon links we're providing in the description below, we will receive a small portion of that sale. That small cut helps us to continue making travel videos.
Ultimately, though, we want you to get the best deal. So we're not necessarily endorsing Amazon as having the best prices, but it's a great place to start.
I guess what we're trying to emphasize here is shop around, use Amazon as a benchmark, check out sites like Craigslist, Letgo, eBay, Adorama, B&H, other things like that, just to get a better idea of pricing. So to start off with our gear.
First things first, the drone. The drone is definitely one of the more critical pieces to our story. We use it primarily for landscapes and B-roll type shots. It essentially helps paint a picture and gives that above in the sky perspective that you can't easily obtain from a handheld camera. This really creates that cinematic picture and will give the wow effect in your final product. This camera contributes to about 20% of our videos.
And the pros on this drone are it's extremely easy to use. So if you're a first-time drone pilot, it's very resilient, the camera quality is amazing, and it's one of the more affordable drones on the market. Now, even though this drone is less expensive than some of the more advanced options, don't let it fool you. The camera shoots up to 2.7K and the images are crisp as hell and vibrant. This thing is also hardcore. As first-time pilots, it's inevitable that you're gonna crash it at some point. When we were learning to fly this thing, it definitely had a few rendezvous with bushes, branches, sidewalks, things like that. But each time we were surprised with how little damage it sustained. We've flown this thing in heavy rain, high wind, thick cloud coverage, and we've never had an issue with it. We even rough landed at one time, snapping its landing gear, and we epoxied it back together and kept it moving. Point being, we highly recommend this drone for its user-friendliness, image quality, durability, and price point.
The cons of this drone are clearly its size, its weight, its flight range, and its exposure. Right off the bat, compared to other more advanced drones, you'll note how large this puppy is. It doesn't fold, the propellers don't fold, and the batteries are about the size of a Coke can. Not that that's a huge deal, but it's something to consider if you're carrying this around for extended periods of time. To transport this drone, it's optimal that you have a specialized bag. We use a Manfrotto, and we'll cover that a little bit later on in the video.
Now, another con for the drone is its range, like Jen mentioned. Most people max out this thing at about a half a mile away. You can get a little bit more by getting an antenna signal booster, but you're not gonna get too much more than that. Don't get us wrong, half a mile is still a good distance and more than plenty to get that cinematic effect.
Lastly, while the camera captures high quality images, it does really struggle with exposure at times. This can be a pain when flying because you'll have to multitask by manually adjusting the exposure by tapping on the flight screen. All in all, the pros definitely outweigh the cons for this drone, and we both highly recommend it.
Now, we did just upgrade to a DJI Mavic. It's ideal for travel videos. It's lighter, it's compact, it shoots up to 4K, but we'll cover that in a more in-depth video when we have more experience with it.
Now we're gonna move on to the Canon 70D, which is what we are using to film this video. With the exception of this video, we typically use this camera primarily for B-roll and pictures to be used later on Instagram. When you purchase this camera, most of them come with an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. We decided to upgrade to an 18 to 135 millimeter lens, just for the simple fact that we can capture close up, but also have the capability to zoom in on distant objects. This camera contributes to about 20% of our videos.
Now, the pros of this camera are its quality, its durability, and its autofocus feature. This camera shoots in full HD at 1080 when in video mode, which is more than enough for YouTube videos. It has a dual pixel autofocus system, which allows the camera to autofocus on something as it moves. You can also touch the display screen to create a rack focus. We personally like this camera because it works extremely well in low or poor lighting. So if you're filming at night, this is the camera you want to use. Now, as for durability, we dropped this thing so many times. We filmed in the rain, and it's not exactly waterproof, but it does have a weather sealing on it.
Now, some of the cons of the Canon 70D are its weight, its price point, its battery life, and its stability. While it does have a nice grip on the side, the weight of this camera will definitely be noticeable after a few hours of use. And speaking of extended use, you're going to run into battery issues as this thing runs through them. While it does have a stability feature built in, it is a very detailed camera and will pick up on even the slightest movement of hand. We do not use a gimbal or a tripod, but it could be helpful if you do not have steady hands. 70D does have a built-in mic, but due to its sensitivity, I'd recommend investing in an external mic. We actually have a Rode mic strapped on there right now, which we will go into a little bit later on in the video.
Overall, we'd highly recommend the Canon 70D to anybody looking to take their equipment to that next level, but it is a little bit more on the pricier side. So if you're starting off, the Canon G7X may be better for beginners.
Speaking of the G7X, that camera is our workhorse. We primarily use this camera for speaking roles and time lapses. This is definitely a multi-use camera and does have some zoom capability, but it's nowhere near the power of the 70D. This camera contributes to about 50% of our videos.
The pros of this camera are its size, its durability, its image quality, and its audio pickup. This camera's super hardcore. It's taken a beating from us multiple times. I mean, we've dropped this thing from anywhere from 2 to 4 feet in the air. I filmed in the rain. This thing keeps trucking along. I've never had an issue mechanically with this camera either. The Mark II version has a facial recognition feature built in. While this does improve facial focus, it isn't always reliable or accurate. The built-in mic is comprised of a few holes in the top of the camera, not really ideal placement, but it does capture amazing sound. When we first started using this thing, we had a little interrupted audio because we didn't have a windshield on top of it. And there are options to buy those windshields online, but we used a technique by Tuamo to correct it, which consists of a few household objects. Overall, the size and weight of this camera is perfect for at-home or on-the-go videos. Now, there are also a few cons to this camera. We've already covered the audio issue, but aside from that, one of the biggest issues is the lens. This camera is notorious for getting debris stuck behind the lens. Canon does have a decent warranty and you can send your camera back to them to fix it, aka they'll send you a refurbished model, but that will run you a few $100s. Now, there is a fix for it that requires drilling the camera lens. I would not recommend this practice if you're not comfortable using power tools or if you just are not handy. Also, by doing this, you completely void the warranty on your camera. I saw Jayo's video on how to do the fix and I successfully drilled out my lens. Now, I'm a huge fan of this technique because I can clean out my lens internally from anywhere in the world with just a Q-tip. Now, the next con to this camera are the screws holding it in the back. If you're using this camera a lot, the screws holding this LCD in the back have a tendency to become loose and ultimately fall out. While the screen will still work without the screws, it does become kind of messy, it's hard to tote, and sometimes you can end up with an upside down image on the display. My recommendation if you're traveling a lot with this camera is bring backup screws. They're small as hell and they're cheap. Now, I lightly touched on the facial focus feature, but it is important. This camera does a great job of autofocus about 70 to 80% of the time. We do sometimes struggle with its picky focus feature, and so far we have not found a fix to that. And lastly, the price point. Now, I would highly recommend this camera for its durability and multifunctional use, but it does come with a tag. When I purchased this camera about a year ago, it ran just north of $600, but that may or may not have changed within the past year.
And now we're gonna move on to the GoPro Hero4 Silver. Everyone is certainly familiar with this camera and it's been out on the market for quite some time. This camera is excellent for close-ups, action shots, underwater shots, and when it's in its case, you can really toss this thing around. It's lightweight, it's portable, it's extremely easy to use, and it shoots in up to 4K.
The only con to this camera is the footage is pretty much flat, and you'll notice this in your post-production. Also, while the camera makes for a decent picture, most of the footage will come out extremely shaky unless you're running a gimbal on it. That brings us to another issue, which is accessories. Now, the actual GoPro itself is a small portable camera, but then you run into the issue of adding accessories for virtually everything. Not only does this add up your bill, but each accessory occupies more space in your bag. Speaking of space, because the camera shoots a higher quality image, you can actually use up a large amount of space on your SD card. Would we recommend this camera?
Yes. If you already have one, definitely bring it with you. I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to buy one unless underwater shots is something that is on your list of things to do. You will not find a camera at this price point that can be completely submerged in water.
So now that we've covered our main cameras in a little bit more detail, let's jump into supporting accessories for each, starting with the GoPro.
So this is the GoPro Mouthpiece accessory. We saw a lot of recommendations on it, so we decided to pick one up, and we have maybe used this twice.
A piece of advice is if you have a hat clip-on, it can be used in the same functionality. By putting it in your mouth, you can still get those hand water shots. Would we recommend this or that? No.
We'd rate it out of 1 star.
So if you're only gonna go with one accessory for the GoPro, we would highly recommend a gimbal. We use this Tech G4S and it will make your footage night and day. This can easily take your video a step up from amateur to a little more professional. Now overall, we're 90% satisfied with this, with the exception of it being a little finicky. From time to time when turning the gimbal in the camera, the gimbal gives a little shaky effect, which is noticeable on the post-production. Again, not that huge of a deal and not that frequent, but it can happen. Other than that, it feels sturdy, the functionality is top-notch, and the battery life is excellent. We would highly recommend this gimbal. We'd rank it at about a 4.5 star.
Another killer GoPro accessory that we use is this Telesin Dome. This is a crucial piece of our gear to get those half in, half out underwater shots. Keep in mind, your half in, half out images will be distorted without this piece. We picked this one up for around $40 on Amazon and it's been extremely worth it. It's a little bulky to carry around, but if you're spending a lot of time underwater, it is definitely worth it.
Now, important thing to note, this will only work if you are in transparent water. You cannot make this work in murky or darker water. Would we recommend this? Yes, especially if you're gonna be in clear water. Overall, we'd rate it at about a 4.5 star.
This is a Joby. You've probably seen this around everywhere and it will very quickly label you as a vlogger or a YouTuber anywhere you go. But seriously, these things are not only handy, they're multifunctional. They attach to the base of almost any camera and give you an extra few inches of space while holding the camera. They can be manipulated to be bent around objects, set up for shots, used as a mini tripod, and are weather resistant.
Now we purchased 2 different sizes. We got the larger one and the smaller one. We would highly recommend purchasing the larger one. Not only can it hold your mirrorless camera, but it can also support the weight of a big DSLR.
Would we recommend this? Yes. If you were running a setup like ours, we would only suggest getting one Joby, the larger one.
We would rate these Jobys at a 4.5 star. No, 5.
If you're planning to use a camera with a built-in mic port, you might want to consider investing in an external mic. We use a Rode shotgun style mic, which is currently on our Canon 70D. This helps eliminate any background noise and focus on your speaking subjects. The audio is clean and ideal for post-production. Is it necessary? Not 100%, but it can take your audio to the next level. One of the downfalls is definitely its size. And don't get me wrong, the size isn't overbearing, but it does occupy space in your gear bag.
Would we recommend this mic? Maybe. If you're on the fence, you could probably pass on it, but if you're afraid that you might have audio issues, definitely put it on your list. We'd give it 4 stars. Batteries. Now these are another crucial element to your lineup. If you're filming all day on the go, you're inevitably gonna run out of batteries. That can ruin your entire day. There are a lot of options these days for generic batteries for your cameras. With the Canon G7X specifically, we purchased aftermarket batteries by Numua. Now, I'm probably butchering that, but I can vouch for these batteries. They're a fraction of the cost of the standard battery from Canon, and the only difference is that you'll get a warning message asking if the battery displays a Canon logo. If you click the no, the camera states that it's not gonna guarantee the performance of the battery, but you can still use them. Now, as far as the GoPro, we use Wasabi Power aftermarket batteries, which function extremely well.
One camera that we do not recommend using generic batteries for is the Phantom 3 drone. We did buy an aftermarket battery and it worked for a few months, but then it completely failed us. So with this camera, definitely stick to the DJI brand batteries.
Trust us.
Now, moving on, let's talk about SD cards. There are a lot of options these days with different SD card brands. We primarily use SanDisk cards and have not had any issues with them. We would recommend investing in your SD cards simply because they are critical to your footage and they're also fairly cheap.
Now, one suggestion is to invest in the Extreme line of SD cards. These can handle 2.7K and 4K quality video much better than the Ultra line. We've actually had error messages recording with Ultra cards in our GoPro and Phantom. The solution? Popping in an Extreme card. The main difference here is a few dollars and priceless peace of mind.
Would we recommend the SanDisk Extreme cards? Absolutely.
We'd rate them at 5 stars.
While filming on the go, you're going to need a lot of storage. We film anywhere between 10 and 20 gigs per day, if not more, and that requires a lot of space. We made the crucial mistake of getting cheap external hard drives when we started off and ended up having one crash on us, which resulted in the loss of months of footage from 2 countries. It was a dumb mistake and we were new at the time, but we really just don't want you to make the same mistake that we did.
All right, I'm gonna be real with you guys. We do not recommend Seagate portable drives. Now, there are a lot of success stories, but there are also tons of horror stories. And since our mistake, we've learned our lesson and we've started investing in our storage. We now exclusively travel with solid state memory. We highly recommend the Samsung T3 1TB drive. Not only is it about the size of a credit card, but wider, the reliability increases dramatically, and this thing is lightning fast with transferring files.
We also travel with 2 MacBook Pros, which combined have 1.5 terabytes of solid state storage. So while traveling, we accumulate all of our footage, and when we get back home, we dump everything onto a lacy D2 4 terabyte hard drive. Now, it's not a solid state drive, but it has a great reputation. And it doesn't do any traveling, so it's not really like it's getting shaken up or beaten up. We would highly recommend any lacy product as they are a reputable manufacturer.
Would we recommend the Samsung T3 Portable and the Lacy D2 drive? Yes to both.
We put these in the same category and we'd rate them at a very high 5 stars.
I'd give it 6 stars. Lastly, we'll finish off with how in the hell do we carry all of this equipment around? Now, there's many specialized bags for equipment and we cannot speak on all of them, but we can vouch for the Manfrotto Aviator backpack. This bag was designed specifically for the Phantom line of drones. Not only can it hold the drone, multiple batteries, remote, and some accessories, it also contains enough space to house all of our cameras and laptops. This pack comes with a rainfly, which is absolutely clutch. We've definitely gotten our use out of this bag, and if you plan to purchase a Phantom, this bag is a must buy.
Something to note, this bag is significantly cheaper on Amazon versus the Manfrotto website. But if you do purchase it on a third-party site like Amazon, you will not get the Manfrotto warranty or access to their customer service. Would we recommend the Manfrotto? Yes, we'd rate it at 5 stars.
If you made it this far, we hope we were able to shed some light and help you out when it comes to selecting your camera gear. Leave a thumbs up if you found this video helpful and drop any questions below in the comment section.
And if you want to keep up with our more fun travel videos, be sure to subscribe.
All right, we're out.